In our last video, we were able to create a centralized environment variables validation system where we were able to validate all of our environment variables in a single place, which is much more efficient than importing and doing validation of EMVs all around our project. Okay, and we were able to test it out with one of EMV variables, which was DB user. Okay, so with the system, if any of your EMV variable is invalid or not provided, you get an error right away as you are starting your server, and with what we set up, we're able to identify which of the environment variable is invalid or not provided. Okay. In this video, I want to show you something that is very crucial for you to understand how this project works. All right, without these parts, it will be kind of a little bit hard for you to understand how the whole project works and what is that actually. Okay, in the way this project is set up, the way it is set up is that a single user can authenticate with different authentication methods. Like we have the local authentication method, which is our email and password. Let's just call it our own custom authentication method. And our user can also authenticate with GitHub and Google. So a single user can authenticate with either one or more of these authentication methods. Okay, so what I'm saying is, let's say I'm a user now, so I can authenticate with the local authentication method, which is the email and password. The same me can also authenticate with GitHub, and the same me can also authenticate with Google. So either I use one of these method or I use all of them. So no matter the number of authentication methods I'm using, all of those method will be tied to the same single user account. All right. So if I have a local authentication method and I also have a GitHub authentication method, both of them will be tied to the same user account. All right. And this is how we keep track of all the authentication methods that a single user is using. We are going to be using the email as the source of truth, as the single source of truth. So if a user uses one email to sign up locally, which is our email and password method that we have there. So if a user uses an email to sign up, let's say this my email now, codingatlas0@gmail.com. So if I use this email to sign up locally and I use the same email to sign up with Google, so both authentication method will be tied to the same single user account, and we'll be using the email as our source of truth. Okay. So if a single user is signing in or signing up with the same email for local, for GitHub, and for Google, so all those accounts will be tied to the same single email. All right. And we'll be storing all of those methods in this auth providers column. All right. So let's say, for example, I'm signing in with the local auth method now, and I'm also signing in with the Google auth method. So all of those methods will be stored in this auth providers column. All right. Let's say I'm also signing in with the same email using GitHub. Okay, so we are going to have GitHub also added as part of the entries in this auth providers array. All right, so we'll be keeping track of all the authentication methods used by the user through this auth providers column, and we'll be using the email as our source of truth. Okay, so any user that has signed up locally, then the hashed password will be stored in this column, and this email verified column is only meant for users that signed up with the local auth method. So if our user doesn't sign up with the local auth method, which is our email and password, if our user doesn't sign up with that, then the email verified column will be null. All right. But if a user has signed up with the local auth method and the account has not been verified, then this is going to be false because it's a Boolean column. All right. And if the user has verified their email, then it is going to be true. Okay. So this column is not relevant for users that signed up with either Google and GitHub, okay? Because as you know, any user that signed up with either Google or GitHub, then their email is always valid because we are getting the email directly from either Google or GitHub. Okay, so that is what I want to point out to you. It is very essential for you to understand that in order for you to understand how the whole program works. And just before we round up this video, I want us to create the pool that we'll be using to interact with our database from our project. Okay, so we are going to go to uh, this library directory. Then we are going to create a new file. We are going to call the file db.ts. So this is where we are going to create a database pool. The pool is going to be managing all our database connection for us. You know, in your app, you can use just a single connection and you can have multiple connections in a connection pool. But for apps like this, it is much more advisable for you to use connection pool, because your app will be having numerous, and it's possible that your app can grow to have thousands and millions of users. It will not be very wise for you to be using just a single database connection for all of your users, because that is going to make your app extremely sluggish. So it is advisable for you to have a pool of database connections where you can have multiple connections in your database pool. So even if you have multiple users at once, different users can be interacting with the database using through different uh, connections. All right, so we're going to be creating the pool here. All right, so to do that, first off, we're going to import the server only package, just so that this function will only be executed on the server, right? And then we are going to create our pool. So pool is going to be, we're going to have the new keyword. So we are going to have pool. All right, we need to import that from the Postgres package. Okay, so we're going to have import, then we are going to have a pool from, then that's going to be pg, that's the Postgres node client. All right, so we're going to invoke our pool. Then we're going to be providing some properties needed by the pool. Okay, so our host, just like we have in our run migration file, we can as well copy all of this. It's actually the same. Okay, so we can copy all of this, and going to provide that here. All right, so what is the problem? Okay, so I need to import this env. We are going to turn this to env. So you can as well leave it as env server, but just to make it much more shorter, I'm going to just call it env. All right, now we are good to go. So we need to export this connection pool. We're going to have export default. I'm going to export it as export default. We have a pool. Okay, but just before we leave this, I want us to just to set up array parser. Okay, you know, by default, by default, Postgres is going to be returning, where is the migration file? Migration file is going to be here. Okay, by default, if as we have an array data type here, this is our hot provider, you know, this is an array data type. Okay, by default, Postgres is going to be returning it as a string whenever we are fetching this column alongside our data. So Postgres is going to be returning this array data type, is going to be returning it as a string like this. For example, let's say we have a local auth method inside of this. So Postgres is going to return this array as a string like this. So we'll be using the Postgres array package to turn the string to a JavaScript array. Okay, so we are going to set that before we create this pool. All right, and the pg package creates a simpler way to set that up. All right, so all we are going to do is, alongside this pool, we are going to import types. All right, so on these types, we can now set a custom parser that is going to be converting that Postgres array string to a JavaScript array, and that is where we are going to use the pg array node package. All right, so here we are going to say types dot set type parser. All right, set type parser. And the first argument you are going to be providing to this is going to be the OID of the data type that you want to convert, all right, that you want to pass. All right, so for now, let's just let's say this is 123, but that is not the actual OID for for the data type that I want to pass, but just to fill that in. And the second argument you are going to be providing to this is going to be the parser function that you are going to be using to convert the Postgres array string to a JavaScript string. And we are going to be using parser from the pg array package. So we're going to have import, and then we're going to have parser. Okay, so we're importing it from Postgres array. It's one of the packages that we installed when we were setting up our program. So we're going to pass parser. Postgres parser has no export member name parser. Do you mean pass? Okay, so this is supposed to be pass, not parser. Okay, so I'm going to call this pass. All right. So, and you can as well create your own custom function. You can define your own function. Just define the function and then pass and then provide the name here. Okay, but since we already have a package that perform that excellently, we'll just use that package. Now we need to get the OID of the object ID of the data type that I want to convert. You know, in a migration file, in the migration that we created there, where's the okay, in this file we created a custom data type. Normally Postgres has standard OIDs for all of its data type. For example, if you are using text, if you are using integers, there is a standard OID for all of those standard data type. But here we are creating a custom data type for our auth provider. So what we need to do now is to get the OID of this custom data type. And how can we get that? We can get that from our database. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my PG admin now. I've actually closed it. And then we are going to query our PG admin to get the OID of this custom data type that we created. All right, so my PG admin has already opened here. Okay, no problem. We can as well run our query here to get the OID of our custom data type. So this is the database that we want to get the OID from this authentication flow. Let me zoom it in once again. All right, I want to believe that you can see it now. Okay, so I'm going to create a query tool on this database, the actual database that we are using for our project. Okay, so query tool. Now to get the OID of the custom data type that we created, so we are going to run this query, select type name, your type doesn't have E at the end, so TYP name. Okay, and then we have the OID. All right, and then we have TYP array. All right, array. Okay, so we are selecting that from PG type. Okay, and then we can, if you just run it like this, you are going to have an enormous amount of entries in the table. If you run this, so you are going to have a whole number, you are going to have a large number of entries from the table. So we can as well streamline this by providing a where clause. And though what we need, we can as well look for it here, since we are looking for auth providers, but that might be a little bit hard to, because it's a custom data type. Getting that might be okay. So we can just streamline this using the where clause. So we can say where, all right, to be after this, where TYP name equals, that is auth provider, which is the name of the custom type we created, provider. All right, so let's run this now so that we can, oh sorry, this should be TYP name. Just like I said, there is no E at the end of that. So if we run this now, all right, I think there is an error here, because normally we are supposed to get the an entry for this custom data type. Okay, because we actually created this custom data type when we ran our migration. So that means there is an error with our database. Right, I'm going to refresh the database and see if we have a table here. Okay, so in our tables part, you can see that what we have is only the pg migrations. We don't have the user table, we don't have the email verifications, password reset. That means by mistake I have reversed my database migration, or possibly in the video where we did the database migration, I did not run the hop part of the program again. So I'm going to go to my run migration. Okay, so this is where the error is. I left it on the down part, which is going to reverse all the migrations that we did, all the database, all the tables creation that we did. So I'm going to change this back to up now, and then let me see if that has okay. So now we have successful database migration. So all the tables would have been created. Now I'm going to go back to my pg admin now let me refresh this. Okay, I'm going to refresh that. Do we have our tables now? Okay, now we have our email verifications, our password reset, and our users. So now we are going to have what we are looking for. So I'm going to create a query tool for this database. Query tool. Okay, now to get the OID we are looking for, we're going to be running this query. Select, we are going to have, okay, typ name. Okay, just like I said, there should be no e. Okay, the OID, and we have the typ array. All right, so we are selecting that from the table pg type. Okay, table pg type. All right, if we run this, we are just going to have a gigantic table. All right, but what we actually need is for the auth providers. Okay, so now you can see that we have our custom table and data type. So this is actually what we are looking for. We are looking for the auth provider custom type, which is what we have there, and the OID for the auth provider is 16836, which is actually what we needed in our program. But this is not the direct thing that we needed. This is for the data type. But for the array, in our schema, if you look at our schema now. Okay, let me open the schema. In our schema, the auth providers is an array of the auth provider. Auth providers is an array of auth provider. So we need the OID of this array, of the array data type of auth provider. Okay, so the array OID is 16835, which is what we have here, 16835. This is for the auth provider data type, while this is for the array of auth provider. Okay, so this is what we need to provide now to our program, 16835. Okay, so that is the OID we needed. If your own OID is going to be different from mine, right? So you just run this query, select type name OID type array from pg type, and you can as well stream down. You can streamline your results by providing the where clause. Okay, so you are going to say where typ name equals, and then you are going to have auth underscore provider. All right, so if we run this now, then you are going to streamline that to just what we needed, which is 16835. You see type array. Okay, so I'm going to provide that now to my program. All right, so we are going to go to our db.ts, then we're going to provide 16835. All right, so with this now, anytime we are fetching data from our database and the auth providers column is part of our results, so this pass function now is going to convert the Postgres array string results to a JavaScript array structure. All right, so that will be all for this video. In the next video, we'll be setting up our email transporter that we'll be using to send a verification email to our users whenever they are creating an account. All right, so don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I will be seeing you in the next video.